Well, good afternoon and welcome to Over the Vest Nurseries. I'm David Wilson and I'm here in one of our trial and testing gardens. Now, if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. But if you're someone who hasn't yet subscribed to our channel, let me suggest that you think about doing so, because we're busy posting new videos like this one all the time. And if you're a subscriber, you'll find that each time that we post a new video, it will turn up automatically in your feed. Now, today it's really beautiful. We're in early autumn. There's hardly a cloud in the sky. The sun's shining. It's a beautiful temperature, and needless to say, it's just wonderful to be able to be outside here in this very nice environment, enjoying all the plants that many of us have the opportunity to grow in our home gardens right here in this region. That's the mid-Atlantic and northeastern states of the US. And one of the things we do is that we test and trial a lot of the varieties that we grow before we send them out to our partnering garden centers, just to make sure that when they arrive and their new home in your garden, that they're going to perform as we expect them to. And part of that is that we will test and trial them in beds like this and pretty much try to create the kind of conditions that the plants are going to find in your garden. Now, here in this section here, we have what we call our no spray roses trial. We test them in other parts of the nursery too, but in this area here, after all the intensity of the summer, it really sorts out the ones that we know are good performers and the ones that are okay and the ones that are really honestly just not going to do. And as you look through the bed here, you will see that there are some that are doing absolutely beautifully. And remember, these plants have not been given any treatment whatsoever, except perhaps a prune in the early part of the year and a little bit of fertilizer. But along with ones that are doing very well, there are some that unfortunately are not doing so well. And that, of course, is the whole essence behind trialing and testing. But today, I wanted to show you a little rose that's really rather special, because this is one that I think you will really enjoy growing at home. And that's this little beauty here. This is Rose True Bloom, True Love. Now, this particular plant has been here at least 3 years, and if I went back and checked my records, it might even be 4 years in this position. And during that time, except for the pruning that I mentioned and the fertilizing, it's received absolutely no treatment except for those couple of things. That means that during its entire life, it's never been sprayed with any fungicide. It's never been sprayed with any pesticide. It's been growing here in this position. And what's neat about it is that, as you see, it's a nice, tight, compact grower, getting to about 2.5 to 3 foot high by about the same wide. It starts to flower early on in the season. Early summer is when it'll start to produce the first flowers, and they keep coming and coming, continuous flowering all the way through to the colder months of the autumn. So you've got a very long season of color with this variety. And when you look at it here, you'll see that right now some of these flowers are going over, and then there are some that are now out in full glory, and then behind it are lots of other buds. So this will keep flowering on through that extended period, and that's what makes it such a terrific little plant. It's got dark green glossy foliage that stands up very well to diseases, obviously. No sign of any black spot or mildew on it here, despite the fact that it's never been sprayed. And that's what makes it, I think, such a special plant, because you don't really need to have plants that you need to mollycoddle and fuss over. If you're looking for some plants that are going to perform well here in this region, you can be sure that in this little beauty, you definitely have one. Now here Because it's so small and compact, it's a good little plant for putting on the fronts of beds and borders, kind of like we have it here. But if you have a larger space, then it will look absolutely magnificent if you put it in larger drifts. And it will grow well in containers too, make a very nice little patio rose. When you look at it closely, you'll see that the buds emerge first like little miniature hybrid tea flower buds. Then as they begin to unfold, you'll see that they make these blooms that are about 2 inches or so wide with multiple petals. I believe there's as many as 120 petals per flower, and that's what gives it this terrific rose effect. And then, as you see, even after all of the heat of last week that we had here, you'll see that the flowers, as they begin to mature, then still give off a very nice colour, and they start to take on a little bit of purplish colouring too. And another thing we've discovered about it is that it doesn't seem to set viable hips. That means there's no dead heading. And if you look at these couple of seed heads that are on here now, you'll see that they're turned brown and they're about to fall off, which is partly why I'm sure this plant is so continuous flowering. It's a very nice little rose for a wide variety of situations, as I mentioned, and because it produces these clusters of flowers here on the ends of the stems, it would make a very nice little rose for snipping and bringing in and putting into a little bud vase too. Now that was our oldest plant. But here in this position on this bed close to the area of our yard here, you'll see that these two plants are younger. In fact, these are probably only in this position about 18 months or 2 years. And you'll see with these that the vigor is coming through to make nice bushy plants that are again covered with lots of these beautiful bright red flowers. Now, another thing I should mention about this, and that is that these plants are vigorous enough to grow on their own roots. That means they don't have to be budded, and for us in our gardens, you don't have to worry about rose suckers coming up from the rootstock, because these are growing literally on their own roots. That's what makes this again a really special variety, and one that I hope you get a chance to grow in your garden. Now this is another excellent variety that has been raised by our good friend Ping Lim. Ping Lim has been working at Altman Plants since 2012. He makes about 30,000 crosses a year, and that yields him in excess of 300,000 seedlings, which he lines out and then examines, and with his expert eye only picks out a very few of those. This particular one came from a cross that he made in 2013, and then the variety itself was selected in 2014, and we got to trial it here in our nursery, and as I mentioned earlier, we've been looking at it for at least 4 or 5 years now, and during that time it has done nothing else but impress us tremendously. Now, needless to say, this is an award-winning rose. In 2022 it got an Arts Award. That's the American Rose Trials for Sustainability, and that means that it went through multiple sites of evaluation and came out, of course, with flying colours. Not a big surprise to us, I must say. Now, it's also won other awards elsewhere in the world, including some awards in as far away places as Japan, would you believe? So whether you want to grow just one single plant like this, or you want to plant them in a bed or a border, or you want to grow it in a patio or a deck plant like this in a container, then you can be sure that this is a really excellent performing plant. This is David Wilson. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.